All right, welcome everyone to this Profitable Steward podcast, the Profitable Regeneration Masterclass, and we welcome you to the Ag Steward family. Just want to hear in the chat, if anybody's here for the first time, put a 1 in the chat. If you guys are here for multiple times, put a 2 or 3 or 5 or 10 or 15 or however many times you've been here. So we have some first timers. Welcome, grateful that you're here, and we really welcome you to this community. So Ag Steward is a community committed to regeneration, and it's a company that my wife and I started a couple of years ago. We do these events, webinars every other week, the second and fourth Thursdays of the month. We just completed a summit last week with multiple speakers. That is still available. If you find the registration page, which I can share it in the link, then or put the link in the chat, that will get you the recordings for that. They will also be posted on YouTube once we get the individual recordings from the presenters edited up. We had it was just a great event. I think it was, despite technical challenges, it was the best event that we've had in the sense that it was well attended. People were hungry for knowledge, and the presenters just did an awesome job of delivering a lifetime of experience that each of them had within their own fields. And we covered more than just soil health and gross margins and all the fun things about regenerative agriculture. We talked about relationships and how to be able to improve yourself as a steward over the land and the resources that you've been entrusted with. We also have coming up next week a follow-up class, and this class I'll just read you the information so that it goes up on our podcast channel. So, so before we dive in today, I want to personally invite you to something powerful. And this class is the Profitable Steward. It's a 2-day event. It's live and it's on Zoom. And it is happening May 1st and 2nd. The time on that is 9 to 4, 9 to 4 approximately Pacific time. We'll definitely start at 9 o'clock. The end time is a little bit open. So show up at 9 o'clock. And it's a hands-on workshop, whereas the summit was more high level. This is where we get down and we get into your business. And we help you to be able to define a clear path for this year and looking 3 and even 5 years into the future. So if you're ready to break out of the cycle of burnout, maybe debt, just barely getting by, and you want to get clarity on a proven path to profitability, then join us. We invite you to join us next week. We'll cover everything from building a team to balancing work and family to creating a vision that you can share with your team and unlocking cash flow. Again, in the summit, we did a survey. Profitability is the number one concern amongst those that were in attendance. So we're going to hit that head on. We'll also teach you the skills to become a profitable steward, whether you are just starting out or whether you're a multi-generation business. This class is for you. So register. The link to register for that is agsteward.fyi/podcast. And those that are on here, I will share that in the chat right now. So there we go. That's the information. We encourage you. It's not too late to sign up. Cost on that, if you sign up through this link, is $49. So it is super reasonable, or $47. And so we invite you to do that. Okay, well, we're honored. We're going to jump right in here with Ryan and Abby. We have quite a bit in common, you guys. I am also a third-generation rancher from Nevada, not Montana. These guys are from Nevada. They're practicing regenerative agriculture and making tremendous success on balancing enterprises. And it looks like from your bio, you guys sold your cow herd. And I look forward to hearing about that. In 2023, are there any regrets that you didn't hold out for a higher market? We can always look back, but I'm sure the decision was made with the best knowledge at the time. We too sold our cow herd. We too have been custom grazing. I'm curious to see if you guys are profitable, because we, in all honesty, are not. Last year we ran a pile of cattle, and we made wages, but we had to tap into some some additional equity in our line of credit. So it's also pretty cool that you guys are transitioning to the next generation, and that's neat. Your transition seems a little more gradual than mine. Mine was my dad and mom left on a mission and said, they asked, are you willing to take over stewardship of the ranch? And my wife and I eagerly agreed. And we were in our mid-20s when that happened. So it's neat that your dad's still there to be able to help and mentor you. That's something that I didn't have directly, but in between missions, he certainly mentored me and via phone and email. But it's neat. And you guys have looks like 3 children, so pretty awesome. Let's tell us a little bit about what's gotten you to this point, where you're going, and we'll fill in the gaps here.
Awesome. Well, thanks for having us, Jared. I'm Abbey and this is Ryan Bruski. We're located in Ekalaka, Montana. We are the very southeastern corner of the state. There was at one point 1 road in and no road out. So it's literally the middle of nowhere, but it's our little piece of heaven. Ryan is a 3rd generation rancher here on this property. And I come from a 5th generation rancher from my family farm. So it's kind of cool that it's a big part of our history and what we want to be, and hopefully our children want to be that way also. And then we're really fortunate about the situation we've been blessed with. Ryan's parents have been very on board with all these changes that we like to do and have attended schools with us, love to continue learning and doing these things. So this year is our first big year of Ryan and I are running the operating business, and we are leasing the land business from my father-in-law, and he works with us in our business as a senior advisor on our board, and he gets to also be a partner. So he gets to do a lot of the great things with us, but doesn't have to take on such of the burden of the business role. So it's been really cool to watch that transition and that succession take place, and not from the grave. So it's really cool that he gets to be a part of that and help us, and guide us and learn with us. So we've been very fortunate.
For sure.
That they're our village. And so I'm going to have Ryan kind of dive into a little bit about the beginning history, just to give everyone the context of our changes and what we did. We did the regenerative stuff first, and then we had to learn the profitable part afterwards. So Ryan will kind of dive into that. So
yeah. So no, I'll just kind of go through the context of how our regenerative journeys kind of started, if that works, Jared. But
that's perfect.
If that's all right. I went to college at Bismarck State College for a farm and ranch management degree, and Paul Brown was my range teacher over there, and he was looking for they'd been hiring part-time help, and I thought, heck yeah, I can do something, because I think I got done with class every day at 1:00, and I had no idea what I was getting myself into. I grew up pretty conventional, but went over there, and that was in 2012 was the first year I worked for him. And Paul and Gabe were just a wealth of knowledge. They taught me a lot, and it was like some stuff I had heard about, but it was something that I had no idea that was possible in our environment. I was like, well, Bismarck, yeah, they're wetter and better soil, but I was like, what if we could do it at home? So I kind of came home and ran some ideas by my dad, and he wasn't all about it right off the bat, but he was really open-minded to change, because he had tried he had bought a no-till drill in 2007 and kind of had been going down the no-till path, and was really willing to some new change. And when I was a kid, this place would run about 380 to 400 pairs, and they were 50 head in a pasture, and that's where they were for the summer. Very high input, big calves, big cows, but very high input, and not honestly profitable. And then we were farming about 3,500 acres to 4,000 acres, and it was just like you say, work from 5 a.m. till 10 p.m, and no room to breathe. And it wasn't something that I honestly wanted to take over or have a family involved in. And so we had a lot of different things that have pushed us to where we are today. But Abby's got a bunch of stuff wrote down here of some highlights. But in 2012, we had a really dry year. And I remember our fertilizer and chemical bill that year was roughly $250,000. And we hauled 4 semi-loads of crop off of the place.
That's all we got.
And it was, a total of like $16,000. So
Yeah.
that was a point where Dad and I were like, we've got to do something different because this can happen too frequently. And some of that was drought and some of it was bad hail. But it was definitely an aha moment for us to say, hey, we need to do something different than what we're currently doing.
Mm-hmm.
And so we started planting things back to grass. And I think it was 2020 was the last year everything was planted, but we did the majority of it in about 2014 to 2016 and planted back to grass. And
about 4,000 acres got planted back. So we are still working through some tame pasture. That's a little bit of a complicated deal. If you've got native ground, take really good care of it and enjoy it because it is so much stronger than some of the tame pasture where if we could do it again, I would plant some of those plants a little different and, put more native seeds in, and focus on forbs and native plants. Cause some of the enterprises we're talking about now that we run, we start to see some complications with our tame pasture. So, but.
And so, off of that, like when we first started in 2007, Dad planted a couple hundred acres back, and I think there was maybe 5 things going down the drill when we did that. And then in 2020, when we were done, there was over 100 things going down the drill. I mean, we learned, and it was a slow process, but we were able to kind of figure out that we need to be adding more things, at least just having things out there in the seed bank. Even if they don't grow that year, they're going to grow when the conditions are correct for them. And those newer seedings that we did, that we had more things down, it's amazing the animal performance and animal health on how much better it is just having the more diversity out there.
Absolutely.
But so that kind of pushed us down the regenerative path, and we started really rotational grazing. We saw how that kind of benefited, but it was definitely a rotational grazing. It wasn't I had no idea that we were moving too fast. We weren't it wasn't what we were doing now, more of an adaptive total graze, but it was benefiting us. I mean, we were getting some pastures, or at least getting some rest that needed some rest, and we weren't hitting all the same spots. And we put in roughly around, right now we're sitting on a little over 95 water points on the place, and we've built a little over 100 miles of electric fence. So we've put in a lot of infrastructure to get us to where we are. And it makes moving cattle much more convenient now. And we're pretty flat country, so moving polywire, anywhere from a quarter mile to a half a mile is really pretty simple because we're not very rough country. But that's kind of been a process that's been taking place the last 15 years, and it's been a fun one to see. Like, I never thought we'd actually get to enjoy the benefits of our labor, I guess. And it's been really fun to see how easy it can be to move cattle. Like when we first started, I thought, there's no way we're going to move our cows 4 times a day. That's just too much work. And now it's like, that's really pretty simple thing when you have the correct setup for it, or a better setup for it. But
I would say that your paradigm shift. So we weren't in the right, I think the mindset is a huge piece of this. We were not in a mindset to even consider these ideas until Ryan went and worked for Gabe Brown. That was our paradigm shift of just like, okay, we don't need to do it the way Granddad always did things. So when Ryan, and then, Ryan tried to bring this home to his dad, he was like, I don't know. And then we took Joe over to go meet Gabe, and we're like, you're going to meet him. And Joe's like, I'm going to drink the Kool-Aid now. He was all aboard. So it's just sometimes hearing it from a different point of view or perspective is really helpful. So once we got him on board with this too, it kind of blossomed. We started really rolling with it. Our mentors and continuing our education, the books, the podcasts, the videos, all this stuff, the schools we went to. You went to holistic management course. You did the one in one of the big first ones.
Soil Health
Academy.
Yeah.
We had so much to learn because we kind of it feels like you're starting all over, so that kind of got our mindset in the right position. However, though, when they do these things, the regenerative stuff is really amazing, and we wouldn't be able to do what we're doing without have made those changes, but they don't really include the profitable part, or how to be, how to have money to do this and do so. That kind of pushed us into a direction where in 2022 we went to ranching for profit. and because we just weren't getting quite enough yet. And so that was like our wow moment. We should have went there years ago, and we went, Joe, Ryan, and I went for a week, and we made a lot of changes. We were like, we looked at it as a business, not just a expensive hobby, I would say, and running around. And so that was really good for us. But when we left that school, the funny thing was we really wanted our cow numbers to work. Our cow calves, we were like, we're going to make these work. And we were going to lose 400, an economic loss of,
No, that was if we calved in March and April. So we went to the school and we were like, okay, we're gonna work. At that point we were calving in May. We were, trying to be in sync with nature. And we thought we were doing much better. Don't get me wrong. It was much better than the March calving and raising huge calves and high input, and quality of life was a lot better. But that was something that I think in 2018 was the last year that we calved early. And in our calving lots out here, there was 4 foot of snow on the level, and we were like, I told Dad, I said, you can turn the bulls out when you want, but I'm not helping you until May 1. And he says, well, it can snow in May too, and I says, yeah, it can, but it's usually gone in a day. And so he got his karma to come around, and in 2019 we calved in May, and we had a foot of snow the 20th of May. And so he was correct, and it was like, it was gone in a day. It was great moisture, but we were, on the transition of really making small cows. I mean, we'd sell fat cows in June as opens. And I mean, this is not, when people say they have small cows of 1,200 pound cows that are skinny in the fall, after raising a calf and weigh 1,200 pounds, we'd take cows that were in a body condition score of 7 in June to the auction market, and they'd weigh 1,000 to 1,100 pounds. So we were small. They were pretty darn efficient, but we're, once again, I said, like, really flat. And so we don't have a lot of protection. We don't have great winter country. We can grow a lot of grass in the summer, but our hay cost was what was eating up our cow business. And I mean, we were to the point where we couldn't starve any more money out of them without having way more cows, cull themselves out or die. And so we were like, 22 was a really hard winter for us. We had about a 3-week spell that it didn't get above 40 below with the wind chill. And it was just brutal nasty on the cows, and the calves are still on the cows. And Abby and I went to the Ranching for Profit Economics Intensive down in Denver, and we actually got stuck down on there during part of that storm. And we came back home and we're like, this might not be cow-calf country. We might not, and there's places that are 15 miles or 10 miles away from us that they have great winter country and got through those storms no problem, but we just aren't set up from that. And that's where our context, when I say there's people that they got through those storms just fine and didn't feed any more or less hay than us, but
I'd say know your context, because all of our environments are different. So then once again, this is just our story, what worked for us. But then we ran the numbers of the custom grazing and the stalker enterprises, and when we looked at those, we're like, whoa, what would we do wrong? And we showed it to multiple people, and they said, why are you not already doing this? And so we kind of made the jump, and in 23 we sold our cows. We've had people tell us now, man, are you bummed you sold your cows at that point? Well, yeah, these are pretty record high prices, but no, that was the most we've ever gotten for them.
I mean, compared to today's prices, in 23, $2,500 for a bred cow felt really high, in the fall. So it was a gut punch when we got that phone call, because we sold them through Williamson Land and Cattle here, and they did a really good job marketing them for us. But, like when they came and videoed them and we knew we were going to do it, it was like, all right, this is the right move. We cannot be profitable enough with our cows. We had ran the numbers every way. They wouldn't cover our overheads, calving late, calving early, raising big calves. It wouldn't cover what our overheads are. So we were like, in the stalker and custom grazing deal would. And so we were prepared, or I thought I was prepared. And when you worked on a cow herd like that, and we made some pretty drastic changes in our cow herd in a short amount of time, when he called and said, "Hey, we've got your cows sold and we can ship them out the 1st of November," it was like somebody punched me in the gut. I was just
Pretty
like
emotional.
yeah, like you say, I got pretty emotional. Yeah, it was a good thing I was by myself, or somebody would have saw a big guy crying. But like you say, once that happened, it was, it was okay, but it was definitely something I don't think I was quite ready for. But it was something that we knew that it wasn't going to work for us with what we were currently doing. I think there's opportunity with cows still. I'm not saying that we won't ever run cow calf again. It just at that time was not what was working. And that's something that I don't think we quite clarified in the last deal. And I don't, about how things were ran on this place before, I don't want to sound like what they were doing at that time was wrong. I mean, for them, it's what worked and got them by. And we really appreciate everything that was done on this place before us. And so we want to be thankful for that. It's not like they did anything wrong. I'm not saying that they did, but it just wasn't what was going to work for us anymore. And that's kind of why we wanted to make the shift and change to the direction that we're at now.
One thing I wish they didn't do that we're working on is the tillage. I was like, any drill that was a disc that was out here, I wish that would have gone away. But years and years of that, there's a lot of damage that we're trying to repair, and it's just taking some time. So, but other than that, we're extremely fortunate, and so we switched over. Currently, we are a custom grazing operation. The cattle come in for roughly 120 days, 5 months, and then we are stockers. Ryan and I really dove into stockers this year, so we are trying, the goal eventually is to own all of the yearlings on our place. So, but for right now, financially, where we started, the custom grazing and the stockers are kind of working together side by side. So like I said, cattle are here for a shorter amount of time, and then our winters were a lot more open. Do you have any more on that?
Yeah, I guess like Jared, you're talking about like not being profitable with custom grazing. We ran it. And if we were to get rid of a lot of equipment around here that I can't quite get on the board to get everybody to let go of and get rid of some overheads, and that might include some help on some dead wood. We could do the custom grazing on a great year. Now, if you have a year like we're currently sitting where we're pretty dry and not going to be able to bring in as many, the custom grazing's just not going to work for us. I mean, so that's why we're looking at the stocker enterprise, because it's quite a bit more profitable per head day that we're grazing than just custom grazing. If using some sell by principles, and we're trying to use a lot of Doug Ferguson and Wally Olson things and going that route. But so that's kind of where we're currently at is with these stockers, and then we'll have a bunch of custom grazers coming in this summer.
Yes. Yep. Ryan, we really dove into the sell by stuff, and Ryan calls me Little Doris, but Wally's wife, but I get to go to the sale barns, and I've purchased the cattle since this fall, and they've been coming in, we've been processing them, and that's kind of the big enterprise we've dove into now, and it's been really fun. Like Ranch Right's been a huge part of our team on this, and John Haskell and Wally are really good and really great mentors who've helped us understand this, and so that's been really fun for us. It's busy, but it's a lot of fun. So I guess kind of going into just our soil health, just some changes that we kind of made just to, I should have brought numbers to show you guys, but we're part of the 1,000 Farms Initiative. Ray Archuleta came out. We're in his last book with David Montgomery. They did some research out here. And I mean, we were going, when Joe had some data, some of our organic matter was like at a 1.5%. And just in the time frame that we had been here, we got it up to like 6.8 or almost 7% on some of our organic matter. And I didn't think we would see a jump that fast in the little bit of time that we had been here. We've been here for 14 years now. So, yeah, it's been kind of cool to see those studies are so huge, to see these things. World Wildlife Fund comes and does a lot for us too, and gives us a lot of samples. And I think if you understand what's going on underneath and take really good care of it, we're gonna be able to our carrying capacity is going to increase. Like I said, right now, when we used to do it was when Ryan was growing up, there were 380 to 400 cow-calf pairs. And now if we fully have a great rain year and a good year, we can stock up about 6,000 custom and stocker yearlings on the place. So it's amazing to see that, yeah, the acres did not change. It's just how we managed the acreage that we had. So that's been really cool to see. We're really big on that. And like the birds, Alejandro Carrillo just came out to the ranch last summer, and the birds that have been on his property in the Chihuahua Desert coming up to here, it's kind of cool. We're talking about getting a bird just to be able to track the paths and see what's out here. And so they move a lot of seeds for us that we don't even realize. That's a cheap source of planting seeds for you. Even with our mineral troughs that we take around, sometimes we go out in the side-by-sides and we put seed out too. So there's a lot of different things that we try that that's kind of fun. So
Yeah, that we've picked up from being at other places and tours
Yeah.
and like spreading the salt. Like some people, we've had good luck getting some hard seeds pass through the salt. But most of the time we'll just spread it around where the salt sled is at, and then, it kind of seeds itself, and it's fun to see the new things come. And
Mhm.
even in the pastures that we haven't done that, we're starting to see some warm season grasses show up, which is a huge deal for us to get, like Big Blue coming and stuff. It's
Yeah.
it's pretty exciting to see that that's happening. And so that's been a lot of fun to see some of these changes happen as fast as they have. I didn't think that we'd get to see that, but our grazing, we've really ramped it up in the last 5 years. It went from, moving cattle every day to now a couple times a day, or, we're really trying to be very intentional on how we graze and, taking care of the animal performance as well, because some of those first years that we were grazing, the animal performance suffered because we didn't quite know how to graze yet. I mean, like on not knowing exactly the correct time to move and everything. And
Yeah. And when you're doing custom cattle, those guys who bring you cattle, you need a reputation and you need to do a good job taking care of them as well, or you're not going to get repeat, customers. So it is really important that we find that balance of animal health and then plant life health. So we're not perfect at it. What we do, I called it's a lot of monitoring and observing and recording and making changes and adjustments. I think a lot of people want recipes or I just want the answer right now. And there's really no perfect answer. You need to really just pay attention and go observe, dig a hole, look at what's going on, monitor how you take your grass, and make notes and make changes accordingly for the next growing season. So that's something we've really had to know. Last year we had 6 inches of annual precip, so that's pretty brutal. So we usually sit in that 12 to 16 inches on a good year, would you say?
I think our average is 10 to 14,
Okay.
but yeah.
We're very arid. And so we have to work with what we've got. And so our, the proper word, but is that, I call it recovery, but the rest period on that grass is very important to us. If we can have some of those pastures not be touched, we take them really hard now, like more of the Jaime Alzondo approach of more of a total graze. So lately we've been taking 80 to 85% utilization, and then we'll rest it for like 12 to 18 months if we can. So that's what we've noticed in our environment that's worked for how dry we are. So
the take half, leave half for our drier arid environment, not getting the precip through late summer and into the fall, it seemed like as soon as you took that half, the plant died. And then you were just left with some stems sticking up and it never regreened back up. Whereas with that total grazing approach, where you remove everything, there's no stem left to try to do photosynthesis and take chlorophyll from the roots. And so if that stem's gone, it shoots up new shoots, and then we're getting new fall tillers and whatnot when we do get our rain. And so that's been kind of fun to see that change. That's been new. We're still not happy with some of our grazes on some of our like clumped grasses. They still leave some of that standing, and without sacrificing animal performance, we can't get that down. But that's where Alejandro maybe mentioned like bringing in some donkeys or some horses that'll remove some of that clump grass further down.
yeah.
And so that's something that's possibly in the future. We haven't made any movement forward on that, but to go back from the soil health part and go back to the profitable part, I'd like to say, like, when we went to ranching for profit for in 22, I was really wanting to go for numbers. Like, that was like, okay, we've got the soil health part figured out, and felt pretty confident. And I went in there, and Dave Pratt asked us who we were and what we did, and told him where we were at, and we are here for the numbers. He says, "Well, you did everything backwards, didn't you?" And it was kind of humbling. He kind of popped my chest and deflated me a little bit, which was a good thing. And but I was like, all right, he's probably correct. We probably are doing this backwards. And like the soil health part that Ranching for Profit teaches and stuff is still really good, but it was like a kind of a refresher. But the part of Ranching for Profit that I had no idea that we were going to get anything about was the people part. Like, that was what we were super lacking in, was the management of the people and taking care of everybody on our team. And that was what, the economics and that's all cool, but unless you're taking care of the people and having a great story, or not a great story, but having a great team that can get along and can healthily get along and coexist and have fun day to day. We had no idea that was where, when they say 90, I think Alan Crockett says every problem is a people problem, but that was the really big shift for us on, like, if we don't take care of the people, none of the rest of this matters. We were moving cattle way more than we could do with the crew that we had, and I was wiped out, you were wiped out, my dad was wiped out. We were going in so many different directions that to try to do all this and make our soil better, but it was like we weren't taking care of us. And until we decided to start taking care of us and having family meetings, and every week we have Whitby meetings, and how much healthier our relationships are because of that it's been game changing on how the rest of the business functions.
Yeah, it's been cool. It's been great for us to learn what hats to wear when we're speaking to our family. And because, when you're most ranches, there's nonstop. You're a business owner, and then when you go home, you're family, and most of your offices are in your home, and there's no safe space, right? So you need to have that, and you need to know what hat to wear when you're speaking to your family and what kind of conversations we needed to have. And so we've studied a lot on the people part of it, learning how to have crucial conversations with business people and anything that we're working in. Most all the problems are people problems. And if you can work through that, this other stuff's just a breeze, it feels like. So, and we have a long ways to go, but we can now have conversations to have this, because without this, we wouldn't have even been able to have a succession plan. We didn't have one. We wouldn't have been able to talk about making these major changes. We had to be in the right mindset to talk about these things, because this is some serious stuff. Some of my family, we come from some generational succession poor planning, and it's uncomfortable. People leave the room. They don't want to talk about it. I think the fear of talking about it means you're going to die. If we talk about retirement and succession, we're going to die. And that's not the case. We need to have a plan in place. We see too many farm accidents and things happen, and we need all this stuff we work for. Why do you do it if we don't have a plan, And so at the end of the day, that's a very important piece to us. But this has been really a fun journey. Like I said, we're number crunchers. We love numbers. We run numbers every day. But our mission and vision is, our big piece is for our ranch businesses is the people being profitable and a sustainable and ecological thriving ranch and plant life, animal life, and the people, even our communities. So at the end of the day, every decision we make, we do have to come back to our mission of why we do what we do on the ranch.
Yeah. That's really good. One on the economic side, what are the driving numbers that you guys measure? Do you have a certain metrics that you look at and keep your finger on the pulse of?
So we have a profit target that we're in EL too, so our board's been really great. We're in Ranch Right, they've really helped us, but I think our profit target is a huge piece on what direction that we want to be going.
Yeah, hitting our profit target above our overheads. And so, like, our gross margin for our cows, we weren't quite benchmark. We were like 56% in Ranching for for profit, they want you to be like 70, and we just couldn't get to it.
No.
Whereas with the stalker deal, we can easily hit the benchmark that ranching for profit has of the 70%. And like you say, the big part of that is the quality of life. I mean, some of these things we could do, but our quality of life would go downhill. So that's kind of definitely weighs in on hitting our profit target above our overheads.
And something cool, even like we've had South Africans for a few years, but what we did was when we ran our figures, just by increasing our carrying capacity, so making those daily moves with the cattle, we were able to run that many more head, and that paid for a full-time employee. So, I mean, it really gets you motivated to get out there and get after it. And it's kind of a no-brainer when we started to do it. So, and then when you have those people to help do those things, we get more time with our kids. We get to enjoy our life too. So that's important.
Yeah. What, on the succession planning, can you talk a little bit about how that worked in your scenario? That's one of I think it was probably number 2, profitability number 1, and succession planning was number 2 of concern areas. And so we know that we're going into a time where there's going to be a lot of transition happening. And so can you tell us what worked well, maybe things to avoid, and what you would advise others who are in your situation, who maybe have parents that succession planning is taboo, how to be able to lead out so that it happens?
So yeah, it was taboo. I mean, like if I brought it up 10, 15 years ago, there was awkward silence or tears were pretty well brought up when succession planning was happening, because I had a really good econ teacher in North Dakota that he pretty well told all of us, he says, don't go back to the family farm until you have a succession plan. And at that point, my dad didn't even know what was going on here. So I was just like kind of swiped it under the rug, and I was like, once we get figured out, it'll be no problem. Not the best way. I still believe that theory of what he says, don't go home until you have a succession plan, is a great deal. But if you're already there, Dad was really, we're very thankful that he was so willing to try on all these new things. And I think it was the spring of 23.
I'll go off on this because, okay, so what happened was when Ryan and I had spoken to Joe right before his heart thing, we had asked if we could lease the place, and he says, I'm not quite ready for that. And so we said, okay, no problem. We will keep doing what we're doing. We went to the succession and estate planning school that Ranching for Profit puts on. And they only put those on every couple years. Dave Pratt, I think, might have just done one of the last ones, but I hope they don't get rid of that because it's extremely valuable. I went with Ryan's parents for 4 days. And when we left there, Joe says, why didn't I do this 10 years ago? And so I think until you can be in the right mindset to talk about that stuff and your paradigms and your take our blinders off. When Dave helped get us in the right mindset, it wasn't a upsetting thing. Actually, it was a beautiful thing. Succession is a beautiful thing. Transition is, and it's not terrifying. It kind of is, but if you have a plan, it's okay. You can work through it and have healthy conversations about it. And it's really been good for all of us to know. Ryan has 2 sisters. They have meetings now. We all have meetings with their spouses and us, and we all can sit down and talk about the plan and where we all see this being at and what this looks like. But that helped get us in that right mindset. And right after that school, Joe came home and started writing out his retirement plan and what his senior advisor role looked like. And the day after that, we took him in and he had a quadruple heart surgery, a bypass, and we didn't know what was going to happen to him. And I think when I called him, I said, are you okay? And he says, I know everything's okay because we have a plan in place. So I think that's a big piece that helps you sleep at night, is to know that we are all on a page and that we're on the same page and can talk about it. And so that really jump-started our family into lots of the uncomfortable conversations that people don't like to have. But now we bring it up all the time, and it's like...
Yeah, like you say, it was kind of weird how it went from being taboo, like you say, to just a normal conversation. And I think that Abbey gets a lot of credit for bringing that up to my mom and dad, and they were willing to listen to us, maybe annoy them, about a succession plan, because we've seen a lot of very messy succession plans and farm sales, and it's just was not the footsteps that we wanted to go
Yeah.
into. And so it's, I mean, just normalizing having a conversation about it, even if they aren't ready, if you can have those conversations driving down the road, even if it is a little awkward a few times, and it is, it can
yeah.
be a little awkward if that's how it
Mhm.
is, but just making those things happen a few more times to where they are kind of normal and not a bad
Mhm.
thing to talk about. It seemed like we went from where somebody ended up crying or being pretty upset bringing up a succession plan to it just was what we talked about. I mean, it
Mhm.
was pretty normal, and I think that happened. It's kind of
It
weird to
did.
look at how it did happen for us, but that's kind of how
Mhm.
I remember it changing from being a scary thing to talk about to being a comfortable thing to talk
Mhm.
about.
I would say the boomer generation or, grandparent generation, it was just something that you just didn't talk about. And that's been really hard because I've seen it in my parents and some in that generation where it's very uncomfortable and people leave the table. They just don't know what to do and talk about it. And some people don't have wills and all these things. And it's really scary because why do we get up and do all this blood, sweat, and tears and work on this ranch and these places if we don't know what's going to happen to it or take care of it? So I think and the difference between what's equal and fair and right and having healthy family conversations of let's put it in a business perspective. The ranch is a business, and just because we all grew up, we don't all run the business, and so finding where all of our roles belong in that has been really kind of cool. But treating it as a business and taking some of the personal out of it does really help make these decisions to see the business succeed and continue. And I feel like that in the end clarifies things for family members and doesn't make the family split up at the end because they're all upset. Everyone wants a piece of the cookie or the pie. And then, and it's land and over here is really hard to split into pieces. It just doesn't
Yeah.
really work very well.
Yeah, that's really good. I appreciate you guys going there and being vulnerable and sharing what that process was like. Can you give like a overview, high level view of the structure, the nuts and bolts of your succession plan, where you do have multiple siblings and just maybe as a template for others or ideas that others can employ as they're looking at their plan?
So yeah, like 30,000 foot view of it would be, we kind of through that succession school, which I didn't even go to. I mean, Abby went with my folks, which is kind of I don't know if it's a cool deal or a weird deal or what it is, but she went with them. And so I think I got what they brought back to me, and so they decided, mom and dad, it was, it's their right to decide if each of my sisters, I have two sisters, that they could have decided that each one of them is entitled to a third of the place. And I flat out told them, I said, that's your guys' right. It's not my place to say one way or another. They worked here throughout high school off and on, and I've been here for since high school and never have left. I worked at college and then came home on the summers, came home every weekend. I said, it's your guys' decision to make what you think is fair. And that can look different with leaving off farm siblings, life insurance policies, different things as far as, cash, home sales, whatever that looks like. But that's kind of some of the routes that they decided to go with for us is like, um, you know, Ryan, you're the one here, and Dave Pratt is a big believer in not splitting up land, and my dad does believe that as well. And so we're very fortunate that we're going to be the ones that take over. When he does pass. Like right now, we are just leasing from him, because we want him to still be here and be a part of the business. But he's not a guy that's going to go golfing. He's not going to go
Buy a boat and move and live in Florida or something.
Yeah, he's not going to go fishing. This is what he loves to do. This is what he will. I mean, honestly, I see him passing away out here. This is what he loves to do, and I want him to be out here and have him give me insight. And he'd done something that I hadn't. I'm already trying to like realize how bad I am at letting the younger kids learn. Like we have a 8-year-old, a 5-year-old, and a 1.5-year-old, and like my dad did a really good job of letting me learn some things the very hard way and sometimes painful mistakes and learn. And he was letting me he was grooming me to be a successor, and I didn't even really know it. I just thought I was messing up and doing dumb things. And he was grooming me to learn the hard way so that I didn't do those again when I was in the management position. And so he did a really good job doing that. That I'm very, very thankful for, that I didn't even know was taking place. And maybe he doesn't either, but he did a really good job of, letting me learn some things the hard way, and not even go through just saying, here you are, kind of wash your hands of it. And he's been there to guide me and learn with me as we've made some mistakes and some learning experiences, but didn't just throw me to the wolves and do it all at once type deal. Kind of your deal, like you say, not having my dad to converse with and go over things sounds pretty terrifying. So I can't even imagine.
Oh, yeah.
So
I think a big piece too that really cleared things up for us, and that's where getting a team to help you do this step, but get that land business and the operating business separate. And most businesses on ranches and farms, we run them together, and it's messy. There's so much gray area, and it's not good. So we're still working on that, but this year we've really dove in with legal, and we've gotten the land and the operating business separate. And I believe that's what's going to help keep land intact and in the long-term generational legacy and succession. I think that's going to keep that together. And the operators are going to change and go, because we're going to die. We're guaranteed death and taxes. I always say that. And we're going to pass on. So we need to make sure that the operators are going to change. But I'd love to see that legacy, that land business, stay together. So I think separating was a huge piece for us. So
yeah. And to touch on Abby and I's succession real quick. Like, we have plans of us being in the senior, because we're kind of same boat. I don't see myself golfing or going fishing or doing anything like that. So
we love the cattle.
But I would love for my kids, if they are qualified and ready by the time we're 55, for them to be putting us in a senior advisor role. And that's something about, like, what we talk about, what's fair and equal and right. And I know, no offense to the baby boomers out there, but there's a lot of boomers that think that only men can come back and run the place. We have 2 older daughters and then a son, and it's going to be, I hope that we can make it work, that all 3 of them can come back if they want. We want a romance idea for them to come back to this place, not force them into it.
But it's who's qualified.
But it's not going to be because you're a boy, you get to come back. If you're qualified to be here and manage the place, that's going to be the deciding factor for us. So that's kind of what Abby and I are trying to work through. And we're already trying to teach our kids, certain things that they can learn, not necessarily the hardest way, but a hard way, so that they remember it. So
really good. That's good. And I appreciate that you brought in, separate the land and the livestock business, the operating business. We encourage our clients to do that too. And so there's another witness that, hey, this is actually good business sense to do it this way. Would you guys be willing to share one of your epic failures? You probably never have one, right? That's probably just one of those.
Pulling out the big book.
Okay.
Yeah, we've got a pretty good learning experience book. We call it learning experience instead of mistakes. But
we tell people when they come ask us, come look at the ranch, and we say, come here and we'll show you what not to do, because
we've done a lot of that. So one that comes to mind for me that was pretty. It wasn't the end of the world, but it wasn't a good thing. We have this lease in the forest that we've had since 54. So we've had it for a long time. And I think it would be about 10 years ago, I think in 2014, maybe even 13, we started bale grazing, and we weren't feeding cattle every day. That was something we had tried, I think, in 12 and at a small rate. And we really liked the results we saw from the regrowth and how it worked, and the time savings of not having to be out feeding every day. And so we thought that was really cool. And in 2014, we had put these cows that had always been at the forest. There's about 100 of them, and we'd put 10 new heifers in every year, and that was it. And so it was kind of a 100-head place, and we were like, well, this place can run more than this. And so we were we ran a bunch of 3 and 4-year-olds over there. And so our prime part of our cow herd, and we were bale grazing them. And they, that old cow herd had stayed in this ash draw every day, waited for feed. They got fed their couple bales of hay, never left this ash draw for protection, and that's just where they stayed. And there's pine needles in all over that place. And so those cows just never had the taste for it because they never got hungry enough to go look for it. Never had any issues the whole time I was growing up. And we took these 3 and 4-year-old cows over there, and a storm hit, and we had fed them, and the storm hit, and they had about 5 days worth of hay. The storm hit about the 3rd day in, and those cattle had already ate all the hay and had drifted up into the pine needles. And we lost about 40 calves out of that deal. We had cows that aborted, and that was
awful.
It was pretty painful to have that one happen. So that was a learning experience that we haven't made again. We'll just say that was something that we learned that one the hard way. As far as grazing wrecks, we've had some where probably the worst one I've done was on Abby's dad's place.
Yeah, he's irrigated.
He's an irrigated place, really heavy clay ground that I have no idea about. We're very sandy, and I don't know anything about irrigation either. And so Sean Abby's dad has planted quite a few of his pivots back to really beautiful perennial native grass pastures that he does hay, and then he grazes in the fall and winter. So we were going to start moving them, and I was going to teach his cows how to move multiple times. And I think we were there over Thanksgiving or maybe even in October for our daughter's birthday.
Rained.
And it rained 2 inches, and I had those cows on about 1.5 acres.
Oh.
And they had already had the pivot had been wet. I mean, the ground was, the soil profile was full. And so we come out
black as the,
it was just a muddy, sloppy mess. We woke up the next morning, and we came out the next day, and I'm like, oh no, this is so bad.
You're worried because he's your father-in-law that he was going to get after you, but no.
And so, when we went to go let him out, because he was like, I'm not doing this, we got to get off this pivot. And I was like, yep, let's get him out, get him on some dry ground, and he looked down and looked out of his side-by-side, looked up at me, goes, I don't know anything about rotational grazing or moving cows, but I'm 1,000% sure you don't want it to look like this. And I was just like, oh no. I mean, he'd handled it very well, but we did take some. I wish we had the pictures to show you guys, but it was just mud, and now it looks great.
It looks
2 years
great.
Later, you can't even tell that it happened.
It had rest, long rest. So we have noticed that on some pieces, if we have taken them pretty hard, and like some pastures we've waited for 2 years to get back into them, though we've seen amazing plant life and species coming. And there's Big Blue coming now that we've never planted that, and so that's so exciting because Lewis and Clark write about it in their journals that they could tie it over their horses, and it's just this big, beautiful grasses. And we're trying to go back to that and restore these pastures to what they used to look like. So it's pretty exciting.
Just giving them a traumatic event followed by a big rest. Yeah.
It was long rest. So
yeah. And we all have those mistakes that we can write down in our journals, and hopefully we only do them once.
Yeah.
I think it helps us learn, though, and I think that a lot of good can come from some of those mistakes too. So
absolutely. Right. Yeah. The School of Hard Knocks, it's the tuition is high and it's not very forgiving, but those are the lessons we remember. And yep. Well, probably the last question that I have for you, and then we'll wrap up. And if you want to stay on for a few minutes, we can open it up for a little more informal discussion after we cut the recording. But what do you want your legacy to be when people look back and they were walking on the land that you currently steward, let's just say 100 years, 200 years into the future? What do they want to know about, or what do you want them to know about your stewardship?
I guess it's in our mission and vision, but I want them to know that we left this place better than we found it. Because I believe the future, or the past generations before us, this land got mined. I'm not saying that what they did was a wrong thing, but it got mined. I mean, the hay got hauled off, the crops got hauled off, and it got completely mined and left us with basically sandbox sand to start with on a lot of this property. And I don't want to leave that for our future generations. If we just were chasing profit, we could have a hay enterprise right now, but there wouldn't be anything left for
Our children.
our children or our grandchildren. So that's kind of the big one for, I believe,
Mhm.
both of us, that we want them to know that we did as best as we could to leave the place better for them than when we were in charge of it.
Mhm. We like to do lots of talks and presentations and invite people out to the ranch. And so for mine, I believe that people are like, wow, they were amazing mentors and role models in our community, in our regenerative community, because we all live in communities, but our regenerative community, that's our people. And I want to be those mentors that they look back like, wow, they were a really safe place so we could talk about these crazy ideas and try new things and do things. And so to me, it's the people part of it. I really hope that they would remember us, that we were doing some pretty cool stuff. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very cool. Well, we really appreciate you guys taking time to join us. Thanks to those who've also joined here live. We hope you will go back and listen to the recording, and the recording can be found on our YouTube channel. Just search for the Profitable Ag Steward on YouTube, and then you'll be able to watch the videos of all the stuff that we do. Podcast channel is the Profitable Steward, so you can check it out there, and you can share this as well. That helps to get some more traction. So just a reminder, next week we have the 2-day class, and as Ryan and Abby talked about their journey and their epic failures. I think all of us have been through that. Thinking back on my stewardship, and one experience in particular, when it was just kind of a perfect storm. We had a drought condition followed by an extremely heavy winter, coupled with the fact that our winter range was overrun with wild horses, and we didn't enact our plan soon enough to be able to get feed in or get cattle out. We were in the third trimester at that point. I think we were still calving in March and April. So their nutritional demands were the highest. The feed was the shortest, and a lot of it covered up. Plus it was super cold. And so just a perfect recipe for cattle not to thrive. And, it's not like they're out in a pasture where you just see them. This was a several 100,000 acre BLM allotment, pretty widespread. And as we enacted our, okay, we got to do something here plan, waiting it out is not the option. Even waiting for the weather to break and the snow to melt. Cattle were really weak, and a lot of those cattle wouldn't get up off of, where their bed ground in the morning with a big heavy calf in them, and they got weak. And that was pretty disheartening. It was really disheartening to watch and to think, man, these cattle are dying and it's on my watch. Here I am supposed to be the steward. God's given, entrusted me with the care. And I made a mistake, and it was a costly mistake. But as you guys mentioned, the lessons that were learned from that were valuable. It's hard to say were they worth the value that it cost, but that price was already paid. For me, it was, am I going to learn these lessons? Am I going to now do every day what I can do? Not looking back with regret of what I didn't do, but now say, okay, I've learned that. We won't repeat that again. Let's do something different. And so in this class that we have coming up, we know that there are challenges that each of us face, whether that's drought, whether that's a huge debt load, whether that's family relationships. These challenges they're intense, and sometimes they can break our business. Sometimes they can break us. But the one thing that we want to be sure with this class and everything that we do, our focus is on building the steward. And when we do that, then they can have more power to be able to work within their stewardships. So that is going to be the focus of this class, and that's happening again next week. Is becoming what, in a biblical sense, in a practical sense, is a profitable steward. So I'll post the link here again. Again, the price for that is $47. How many of you already signed up? Just put a 1 in the chat or a Y in the chat if you already signed up. We've had quite a few. We still are not at capacity. So you guys are invited on the podcast. You're just listening to this. It's agsteward.fyi/podcast. And that gets you to the registration page. So, all right. Looks like Chris is coming. Good. It'll be good to see you there. Very, very good. Okay. Well, thanks everybody for joining. We hope you'll join an event again soon. Again, we do these every second and fourth Thursdays. Check out the summit replays coming out, and we appreciate the support that you guys have given us here. We'll see you on our next one.